Cool.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Innovation Hub. And today we got a special guest, which is Patrick Ross from Music Alley. He's the Senior Vice President of Digital Strategy. And he's been working also at AWOL and Cobalt for over 10 years in the marketing department as VP of Digital Marketing. And he's got a lot of experience with future trends of the data and technology. So he's going to talk about trends in the music industry for about 20 minutes. And you guys are free to ask questions in the questions tab next to the chat. And I'm going to take them at the end and maybe take you on stage if you want to. So for now, have fun with Patrick.
Cool. Thank you very much. I'm going to put my screen sharing on. This should all work, hopefully. And put that there. Cool. And now everybody should be able to see my screen. So welcome. Today's presentation is brought to you, as mentioned, by Music Ally. Any questions, of course, put them into the questions box, and hopefully we can answer them if we have time at the end. But what we want to talk to you about today is future trends. We have a couple talks on this, and this is our one regarding data and technology. One of the reasons we see ourselves as being quite able to spot future trends at Music Ally is because we've been writing about these things so long. We see what comes, we see what goes. So a lot of the things we're going to talk about today are things that are happening now. And we're kind of looking to those to look to the future of what we think will be around. If it's not already changing the music industry, it certainly is going to. So we're going to do two sections today. I'm going to cover two pieces of this lecture on future trends. First thing we're going to look at is AR and VR, so virtual reality and augmented reality, which hopefully you're aware of. And then we're just going to shift gears and take a look at artificial intelligence and how we see that working within the music industry. So AR, they've both been buzzwords for quite some time now, but their potential is certainly not exhausted. So we're going to take a look at some of the recent developments in both technologies, and then kind of think about what we can see coming up next. So those that aren't aware, everyone should be aware what virtual reality is, VR. Of course, it immerses a user in a fully digital environment. You get the wonderful headset like that guy there, anything from HTC Vive, and Oculus Rift, Google Cardboard. You get the idea. You have to have a headset on, and it actually transports you virtually into a virtual environment, as opposed to good old augmented reality, which that should be very familiar to you on the right there. Snapchat, Instagram, both do a lot within augmented reality. And what augmented reality does, of course, is it overlays virtual objects onto real world settings. Also been used in things like Pokemon Go. So we should all be familiar with those two, augmented reality actually overlaying in the real world and virtual reality being sort of a headset experience. So right now, where are we? We have some back in 2018 that around 14 million had been shipped across the globe. So that's a decent number. I think a lot of people thought that we'd all be wearing headsets and VR would be much bigger than today. However, the headsets is sort of what holds things back. That said, there are some startups that we're going to take a look at that are music focused, such as Melody VR, that does a catalog of 360-degree performances. Also things like Hill VR, Sorium, that have raised quite an amount of funding back in June of last year, all about doing VR music concerts. We'll take a look at Wave VR, which has launched itself as Wave, which is basically a multi-channel virtual entertainment platform for live concerts. Don't worry, I'll show you what that means. And then the first thing we're going to look at is a company that was actually bought by Facebook called Beat Saber. That is a VR music game. If video is working, I'd be able to show you some videos of these, but I'm just going to kind of have to explain it with these screenshots, but hopefully you get the idea. What Beat Saber does is sort of think about lightsabers, virtual lightsabers in your hand, and kind of the mechanic of a Guitar Hero. So you're basically going through your favorite songs, and slicing with, as you can see that guy do, on beat as different things come up. What we really see interesting here for the music industry is that the songs that actually go into Beat Saber are actually provided by musicians. So there are actually packs of songs that have already been out there. And these songs actually go for, you can basically buy these beat packs. So it's the idea of like being able to buy a song into Guitar Hero. You can actually buy song packs within Beat Saber itself. And we see that as being a place, or within the gaming market, where music sort of integrates, that we can actually have licensing relationships and many more packs just like this coming out in the future. The next one we want to look at very quickly is Wave VR. This is Lindsay Sterling. If you can see on the bottom right there and quite small, that's Lindsay in basically a full body suit that fully maps all of her movements. So on screen, she's playing in a fully virtual environment, virtual stages, basically all kinds of really cool background things. You can go look at the actual movement, but it's her in a fully immersive virtual environment. What we found really interesting about this is not that she's in a virtual environment, or the fact that she actually attracted 400,000 live unique viewers into this. There was also an interaction aspect of it. So this is actually, so once she's actually played, you can see Lindsay on the picture-in-picture on the right, actually in this bodysuit. But what all of the fans are actually seeing is this sort of chat interaction. So she was actually able to get fans commenting. If you actually go watch the video, you've got Lindsay basically chatting out to fans, taking in some of the fan comments, and it basically it was an online event, which obviously we're doing lots more of during COVID times, but turned it into something a little bit more compelling because the fans could interact. Another one that we want to just point to, which takes a name across ours, is Sandbox VR. They basically raised $11 million in funding, so they're well on the road. They have Star Trek VR experiences right now. They're basically to go forward and do more music, sports, storytelling. So the idea here is that there's a lot of companies in this space, if they're not already out there or pivoting to go into music, more that plan to. So, and we're thinking much more than just 360-degree concerts. We look at Lindsay Sterling. We're thinking about, you think about Travis Scott on Fortnite. What could we do in a virtual environment when we actually get to join our artists, especially when there's no touring? So what do we see next for VR? Well, we definitely said there's going to be more activity and social experience. We feel that games are definitely still going to be the biggest use of VR for some, but VR and music games come together, like you saw with Beat Saber, we think we'll be seeing a whole lot more licensing opportunities for music. So we definitely see music having a significant role, especially within the efforts of Facebook's Oculus hardware. And we'll talk a little bit more about Facebook in just a second. What hasn't been done yet, which we feel like hasn't been done anyhow, is no one's actually created if anyone remembers, second virtual world in this new VR era. Well, we say no one has done it yet, but it will happen. Definitely worth checking out the video of this one. This is a shot from Facebook's Horizon. So this is basically something that Facebook's Oculus division, their VR division, is actually developing within the Oculus Media Studio. Basically, it's exactly that, a virtual world. So if you see those people in there, those little avatars, you can fly around in an airplane, you can hang out with your friends. Think about going social on Facebook, actually going in a virtual environment with a headset. So it's definitely, Facebook has already launched this. Soon it won't just be in posting, being able to interact kind of virtually. When we look at AR, we've seen things like back in 2019, Childish Gambino launched an AR smartphone app. Louis Tomlinson had to start using the startup Denmark, had an AR scavenger hunt, so this is already happening. Part of the David Bowie exhibition was actually transformed into an AR smartphone app, actually sold for $7.99. So again, taking a physical space and basically augmenting it. Of course, we know about Snapchat and Instagram AR. But this is one thing we wanted to talk about that is actually related to music. So if you've heard of Magic Leap, if not, definitely check them out. They do a lot with basically augmented reality and putting these virtual objects into a real world space. They've actually done that well within Magic Leap and Spotify. This is what it would look like. So you had your set on and that was your living room. As you can see, all of those little virtual objects. In the middle, you've actually got your Spotify player that you can, as they say, sort of works like a record shelf, like going through a record store. So you can actually flip through the catalog there on the bottom. You can pick what music you want to listen to. You basically place it in a space. So you can see it's placed right here on the table. You can also go and take, if you see around the sides, you can take your favorite album cover, basically virtual decorate inside the room. So it's this reality technology to engage. It's already here. This is another idea that we also see kind of coming even further. So that obviously was someone's living room being augmented. But what about this idea of hyper reality? And if you actually look up hyper reality, you can find the sort of disturbing, very long video that I came out of Colombia. Here, as you can see, there's a real woman pushing her shopping. Everything around her is popping up based on her preferences. So this idea of AR merging together and actually going into our virtual world and allowing the world that we live in, the real world market in this, actually to augmented reality objects that are going in and changing based on the user. So what we see next with augmented reality is that more and more artists are definitely going to experiment with AR. Often this gets bankrolled by tech companies because musicians are always a really good thing for tech companies to get people on board. We did see more powerful experiences being created, just only by Instagram and Snapchat, blending this and the streaming interactivity. So the idea of having things going on in your augmented reality while having an audio listening experience. There's more accessibility around this. So Adobe Aero, for instance, is launched. There's no coding required, and you can basically create an AI experience without actually having to know a single code. We also see in the future that there's going to be another or big AR game, and the idea of me actually partnering. You see lots of ability for music to get into this space. The big question though is, how am I going to do all this without some sort of big headset or some sort of mask on? Am I going to walk around the supermarket with a VR set? Well, no, we're not talking about VR. We're talking about AR, and Facebook's already on the curve of this. They look, Google Glass remembers those. These are spectacles. So they're AR that look basically normal, but would allow everything there of actually overlaying objects into the physical world. That is all we're going to say on AR and VR. We can come back and talk about some questions, but let's move swiftly over to looking at AI, artificial intelligence. So a lot of people have looked at AI and wondered, is AI going to take music, and is it going to be something that's going to replace music? Well, at Music Alley, we try to have a positive about these sort of things, embracing technologies. We're going to talk a little bit about how we do see it impacting already music and where we think it's good. So some of the uses around AI and music. AI music is really great already for creating like cheap tracks. So say you backing track or some sort of just a film that you were doing or something that was on YouTube and you don't want to pay for music, well, you could go in and do a cheap backing track. That's already been done. For songwriters, actually, we see AI as being a tool. So you can actually use an AI, put in a song, and have the AI process it and back out. So use it actually as collaboration. We also use a collaboration with musicians as well. You could basically play a riff into an AI, let the artificial intelligence actually take that, interpret it, and spit it back. So there's a collaboration side of it. But one of the challenges I do see around this is definitely that where mood and activity music come in. And we'll take a look at some already doing things like this, but music that this is very much cared about. It's mood music, that music, the chill. We also see the possibility of AI being a bit like the new SoundClouds. This idea of AI actually not just being a place where people put music on SoundCloud, but actually using AI for kids and for young artists to actually create music, but working with an artificial intelligence and actually getting better. So when we take a look at what's actually going on in this space, one of the startups we talk about is which started its beta back in July of last year. And Boom, what it basically lets you do, what's interesting about it, is it allows you to create AI-generated music and instantly upload it to streaming services. So not only can you go and create these, and the site's actually free to use, or there's a subscription, but once you actually create music on there, you can release it to things like Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, and you keep 80% of the royalties that end up getting paid out. Don't take my word for it. Our editor-in-chief, Stuart Dredge, has used Boomy. You can find him on Spotify. I think he's got a total of 35 listeners there. It comes and goes. Hopefully, he's got over that 1,000 mark. But yeah, basically, Stu has been using Boomy and went in, made beats. You can kind of see how he picked out what sort of themes that you want. You can basically go in, set your preferences, and it comes back and spits out a piece of music. And then as you see here, actually gets delivered and put out onto like some Spotify. So people that don't actually have any musical background, and I'm not going to knock Stu's musical talent, but have any musical background, are actually able to distribute music and put it onto these platforms using an artificial intelligence. And this is already happening. Another startup that we want to look at of Indel. So basically what they do is they actually generate mood music through their app. but they actually have a distribution deal with Warner Music. When this came out, everybody was saying that it was the first algorithm to get signed to a major record label. Not actually true. It's actually the fact that the music that comes out of the AI is what's signed. It's basically a standard distribution deal, but Warner is actually distributing their content with a 50-50 distribution deal. So they're creating music artificial intelligence-wise, and Warner is marketing and distribute it. You can see here on Spotify, for instance, they have a This Is Indo playlist. You can go in and there's playlists around sleep, there's playlists around calm, and basically it's all AI generated music flowing through the likes of Warner. And they even have their own This Is Indo on Spotify. So AI music actually being put out by record labels. It's already happening. But on the sort of artist focus side of things, Toro et Moi and Indel have actually launched an AI-infused soundscapes project. So they partnered with Smart Empire, and they basically went out and created a bunch of tracks. Obviously, it was sort of brand collaboration here. Basically, but they put sort of the different types of water and actually made an album out of it. You can see they have people like Washed Out actually featuring on these tracks. They called them Smart Beats, and again, they actually launched these on Spotify. This is an artist, a real artist, that were actually working with an artificial intelligence to create and yes, actually release it. They're doing much better than art writer Stuart Kedge. When we also look at other sort of opportunities around here, I've mentioned Indel. There's also things like Mubert as well, and they've basically launched apps that are capable of generating an endlessly adaptive stream of music. So this is sort of what we call generative music. It generates around what you're doing. So instead of this having it on Spotify, you need to go, it's actually looking at what you're doing and whether that's relaxing, focusing, working out, and you basically get an endlessly adaptive stream of music that keeps being pushed to you based on what you're doing. So this is what Mubert looks like on their website. You basically go in, you choose between actions, so working, study, meditation, what you're actually trying to do. You can actually go into genres and places. It's not only consumer, but yes, of course, you can go in and make their music. Also exploring B2B, so where you use their platform to basically generate elevator music or sort of background music in a shop. Other things within the generative music market, where we see this going, is definitely good for commercial customers. So like I said, shops the idea of having a personalized endless stream of music that's copyright free while your shoppers browse or your diners dine. We could also see it for brand special projects where a brand is trying to do some music and a brand they're doing, and again, so we want to pay for YouTube and Twitch. Another really big place that we see this being useful. So say a Twitch streamer or a YouTuber needs some music and they want some generative music that matches to the mood and the activity of what they're doing. Well, they could use some generative music to actually do that. And then we also can see it being used within mobile applications. So think about playing a game and you need the music in the background of this game. Well, you could use generative music actually responding to how you're playing the game with characters. Another one we're going to shift gears here and take a look at is the developer of Databots. They basically what they call an all-audio neural network, including something called Relentless Doppelganger, which is basically a 24/7 YouTube live stream of AI-generated death metal. So what Databots has done is raw audio networks is they've basically trained an algorithm not only to, as they say, it sort of think much like the human brain, but they've actually to go and be able to create based on what they put in it. So for Relentless Doppelganger, for instance, they've put in loads of metal, and now this YouTube stream, this AI that's generating this YouTube stream, is actually able to create generative AI death metal. So they all come from math rock. You can see here, generating math rock via live 20 to 24. Really interesting to see the patterns they put. But you could basically put things in there. John Coltrane, the Beatles, for example, and the AI will actually replicate sort of the networks of a human being, and then actually put that music out there and create an endless stream of that music. Another startup that we want to quickly touch on is Mellow Drive. So they do music specific to gaming needs. They basically launched a 24-hour channel streaming music on Twitch, and we thought was actually really cool out of that is on the stream, it's actually interactive. So you can actually go and comment and based on the sentiment section, so the idea whether there's joy, anger, sadness, or tenderness expressed, the music will actually react and be reactive to this. So generative music is not only just about creating an input stream, but it's also about responding to the user or responding to the environment. When we switch over to one of our big companies, to wrap up here, is Amazon. So they've just released their AWS Deep Composer. And the idea here is, again, about that collaboration. So as opposed to the sort of generative music and things where you see, okay, that could replace the kind of mood and background music, this is where Amazon is in for composition hardware. So this is what it looked like when they launched it. It's basically a 32-key keyboard powered using generative AI. So one of the big features within this, the idea is what they call automated chords. Basically, you put one key, and then you get the entire chord by AI. So the idea is that you could go in and write a piece of a song, and then the AI will basically autofill the song, guitar, bass, synth, drums, and basically, according to the company, according to Amazon, they say it's a remarkable diversity of genres. So where do we see this go next? Well, we see that generated music is going to be able to compete with creative music, especially when we look at places of mood and places like streaming and voice. So that's where we see the biggest, say, competition to your traditional industry. We definitely think all humankind is going to be listening to in AI-generated music. You probably already are, whether you realize or not. And we also think that this AI music, and as you can see here, it's going to get more personalized. It's not just generated on the fly, but it's generated for each individual listener based on their preferences, based on habits, based on current activity. And we're still trying to work over this in an industry is collecting societies and lawyers have to catch up to actually understand how we register these works. Who actually owns the AI music? Is it the person who programmed the AI? Is it the artist who's content actually put in? We're trying to stay ahead of this curve. We spoke to law firm Reed Smith recently, saying that they're basically working really hard to understand how we can license this. So licensing is catching up, but there are opportunities as licensing moves forward for rights holders to actually create their own license training sets and train an AI, and that could actually be a new revenue stream. I'll leave one last piece from the wonderful, I believe it's all speaking here today. As if you tile this, let's say a VR goggle, an AI powered like an artiphone, which is the system, and we strum on my guitar magically. And I look at goggles, it's a people, is on the side of pages on the other. Holy shit! Stage with Led Zeppelin. I'm gonna start, and I can't even start. I'm the chief innovation of Warner Music. Pull all together, and I think it's very future. Sit on that come through those tracks. Go and take a look and see if there's any. I'm just going to. And
amazing. Thank you, Patrick. We actually got one question from Alejandro. Do you want to come on stage? You can just answer in the chat box. If not, I'm going to read your question. Yes. All right. Let's invite you.
Yeah, I can see the question. Should I start answering, or are you coming up?
I think he's getting ready.
Okay.
Maybe we can start. Yeah, let's just go ahead. So the question is, in your view, if you train an an AI on Beyonce to make original music that sounds similar to her, do you owe her anything legally or financially? I think you already said a little bit about that.
But touched on that. That's exactly what we're trying to figure out right now is exactly that. If you go and you program an AI with Beyonce, for instance, and that AI now its own, and this is kind of the thing with the artificial intelligence is what you feed it is what it defines music. So there's AIs that do the Beatles. You could very much do one that only knows Beyonce catalogs. And when you say, give me music, it defines music as the music that Beyonce's made. But yes, that is a big question right now of what is the licensing. That was kind of what we were saying that Reed Smith has been saying, is that are those actually licensed? opportunities for us in the future? Could there be the idea of, look, if you program this AI, and we can prove that you did, I suppose, with just these songs, and you've got a Beyonce generator, well, then should you get some revenue off the back of that? So licensing, that's the thing with licensing law, is all to catch up, but we'll find that not so distant.
Awesome.
Cool.
Do we have any more questions? Feel free to pop it in the chat or the question box. If not,
and he's the next speaker, so thanks, Alex. That'll be great. Hopefully he plugs me too. Awesome.
Perfect.
Oh.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I would actually encourage everybody who's listening and who's interested in campaigns using.
We've got a couple more questions. I'll answer these really quickly. We've got a minute. So what is the effect likely to have in the recorded music industry? Yep, so we already see it affecting mood music. It's already replacing, as you've seen with Endless, actually, going to Spotify. It's definitely a challenge. It's definitely challenging the mood music sector. But to quote Nick Cave, he said, AI might make a good song, but it will never have the balls to make a great song. So we very much see it as something you can collab with AI, but yes, it's definitely replacing those elevator music, things where people care about the artist. I do think, though, if we lean into some of these technologies, allow us to create the music with AI. And I think that I'm trying to questions. I'm not quite sure if these are recorded. I've got the question: what potential limitations AI has on cataloging? I'm not exactly sure what that means. If you want to clarify. No? I think we're just about out of time. Classifying music genres. I mean, that's sort of all bits and nest. I mean, there's the ridiculous amount of Spotify genres. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but it has far more to do than with actually within Spotify, but what you actually sort of deliver to them. So yes, I would say that in classifying music genres, these AIs, they do understand and beat and can actually really work out a lot of these things. I think as these AIs actually get more powerful, if we're talking about recommendation, this was more about music creation. But yeah, if you teach an AI about what genres are, it's basically about the inputs. If you can train it and it can understand what the inputs are, then yeah, certainly do that. Cool. I don't know if these are recorded, sorry. And I'm not quite sure of the machine emotion question unless I'm to okay, somebody wants to comment upon that. Cool. I think that's pretty much it, seems like.
We have two more questions. I just said one.
Two more.
Wendy, but I got cut off for a second. The personal take on the spread of AI and AR. Is it going to be
two very different things, but the spread of AR is pretty much all got Instagram, Snapchat. So AR is definitely spreading quite far, and you see all these startups. A lot of the reason we talk about the startups and the level of investment in these is these are things that are coming. So we've talked about some that are, for instance, been around for a while, but there are many more startups actually going into this space. Actually, if there's a third section of this which we didn't have time for today, but that's actually all about synthetic reality stars, and that is where these two things start to come together. It's the idea of actually having an augmented reality star that you can have on stage, but also having being driven by. So yeah, these technologies are going to definitely be coming together, and we already have like Hatsune Miku, we already have synthetic reality stars. Just watch this space. There's certainly going to be more of them. Okay, I think that's all the questions got on there, unless I Oh, it's a couple. Do I have any guess? Okay, I can do guesses. What percentage in AI would take a catalog of songs on a DSP, which will take over that? No, not going to make a guess. Really, you know, AI, as I said with AI, it's not really fighting songwriters' music right now. It's much more sort of like your kind of mood music. Yeah, going to be synthetic stars with completely generated, but we see trying to be positive that hope is that that these things should be collaborative as just replace musicians. But it is going to be of competition. And I mean, that's into a different section, but asking, do we think it could lead to lesser musicians to a virtuoso? Yeah, others we've got actually talking about music making. There's a bunch of out there that are already that allow basically that's completely literate, and that is a whole other trend that doesn't fit into AR or quite AR, more about instrument learning. But yes, you can part of that as well. Using an instrument teaches you while working with an AI that can actually songwrite back and forth. We're mostly talking about it for like accomplished musicians or people being able to put something in. But yes, if you do a little keys on the keyboard, put it into an AI, it would come back. Cool. All right, I think that's pretty much time. That's with 2 questions. Great, awesome. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick, and everybody check out Music Ally's sandbox reports, because there's a lot of great information about campaigns using these technologies that Patrick just talked about. Yeah, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank y'all.